Welcome back to the Ottawa studios of Inside My Canoe Head. I am your host, Dr. D. Today, we are talking about financial resiliency for small and medium businesses with a lot of lessons for individual families. How do you prepare as a small business owner, as an Etsy store owner, or as a little side hustle manager? How do you prepare to get punched upside the head, get back up, and carry on in this chaotic environment? That's what we're talking about today. So sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverages. Let's get at her. All right, welcome back, and we appreciate your ongoing feedback to all of our different videos that have been up, all our different subject matter. We provide this free education because we believe you, as a small, medium business owner, as an online entrepreneur, or as an individual family member, or as a community organization, somebody who's trying to be successful, trying to pursue your dreams, trying to go after your goals, trying to expand your business in the middle of this chaotic political environment, in the world of climate change and many other things that are affecting everyone. We simply want to provide you that advice, real world advice. What does that mean? Our moniker at the company, Preparedness Labs Incorporated, which is the parent company of this podcast, is simply non-apocalyptic, evidence-based risk, resilience, and preparedness education, which means myself as a university professor in disaster and emergency management and in risk management, my responsibility is to know that what I tell you here is grounded in evidence. It's not a belief or an opinion. Everybody has them. We know the joke about that. It's evidence. It's facts. It's truth. It's research. It's data. So what we provide you here on this podcast channel does not guarantee outcomes. Nothing will ever be guaranteed. Will it increase the probability of success? That's not even guaranteed. But what evidence does for you is it provides to you that a group of people went through a similar circumstances that you're going through before. Here's some things they did that were successful for them. Maybe if you employ part or all of these ideas, you'll have a higher probability of success. That's what evidence and research does for you. So today, when we're talking about financial resiliency, we have to start off finding a logical definition of resiliency. Now, as a professor in academia, the word resilience and resiliency and resilient ideas is probably the most abused term in the entire field. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of definitions of resiliency in the peer-reviewed literature, in the gray literature, and circulating online. It is very common for a social scientist when they write a paper or they write something to start off with, for the purposes of this paper or the purposes of this argument or this video or this program, we're defining resiliency as blank. A lot of times that is done from an honest perspective to try to say to you, hey, we just want to frame this correctly so we all understand what we're talking about. The problem with it is that adds one more layer of definition to a singular term. So now if I wanted to define resiliency as almost anything you could imagine, I'm guaranteed I could find a piece of literature that would back me up. So when these situations happen, as a social scientist, I look over to my friends that exist in the natural sciences. So your physics, your chemists, your biologists, and people like that, they have a far stricter series of definitions. And when we look at the physics definition of resiliency, which is physics is the study of the physical world around you and the forces at play in the physical world. When the physicists come out, they say it is the ability to absorb energy and return to stasis. So that means your ability to have force applied to you as a business owner, so a shock from exterior, your ability to absorb that shock, and if you're knocked off of stasis, which is simply your normal status, your normalcy, your ability to return to normalcy. So if we look at the scientific definition in the physical sciences of resilience, we find a much clearer one. And it's absorb energy, return to stasis. That's it. That's resiliency. So when we look at financial resiliency in a small and medium business, this can be your Etsy store that you sell $250 every 2 weeks. Or it could be your Shopify store that you just started and you sell $10 a month. Financial resiliency means you have the ability to navigate what you believe likely to occur in the future. Knowing what likely is to occur in the future is the first step of understanding financial resiliency. It's understanding the world in which you operate. You've chosen to start a business in the online space, doing something, a good or a service, in an industry for an avatar customer. Okay, so you've set that up. You know who your target customer is. You know the problem you're solving. You've created a product or service to do that, and you're using some marketing methodology to reach out to them and persuade and convince them to buy your service or good. That's what you've done. That's the marketplace in which you've chosen to operate. The biggest first barrier to financial resiliency is that people don't live in the world and where they find themselves. Often you will find people who will want the world to look a certain way, especially when we talk about how political decisions can influence economies. We see that now in America and Canada relations, where I live, EU and Canada relations. Governments around the world are making pretty large and impactful decisions, which they have every right to do, but those decisions influence beyond your ability. People get mad and angry about that. You hear phrases like, this shouldn't be able to happen. I don't want this to happen in the world. I should be able to do this. And while they're not incorrect, what they're focusing on is the world they would like to live in, not the world they currently live in. And your single greatest barrier to success at the beginning to build financial resiliency, which is from a monetary perspective, your ability to take a shock and monetarily survive, is that you have to understand that you live in the world as is, where is. You have to accept it and understand it. Nobody said you had to like it. None of us in business and online space, and I sell cross borders. I don't like this any more than anybody else does, but I have to become an absolute guru and expert in what does the world look like where I operate. This online risk preparedness and resilience education space exists globally. It's influenced by a number of forces. I have to understand that. A lot of people ask yourselves, how do you do that? Well, business mapping. Business mapping is the first thing that we always say in logistics and supply chain operations is map your business end to end, from your make or buy decision to your last mile logistics and returns if necessary. And all of the systems that underpin that, all of the software that you use, all of the points of access to the internet you use for cybersecurity, and you create this really big, ugly map. And the reason it's ugly, and if you're an entrepreneur, you'll get this. When you start off this beautiful creation that you start, you have this little nugget like this. And then a new program comes along, and a new opportunity comes along, and a new website comes along. And before you know it, you have a whole bunch of things that are making the system work, but they don't talk to each other. They're not interrelated, and it's a bit of a juggle. I had a conversation with my incredible wife, my best friend, last night, joking about the fact that I manage 4 calendars. I have one that's primary, but every week I have to sit down and meld those calendars together and make sure where my commitments are, etc., because I haven't figured out how to get the Apple, the Google, the Outlook, and my second Outlook calendar to all talk to each other and only use the same calendar program in all the different email programs. Haven't figured that out. Someday I will. But that's the reality. So it's not really well thought out when we build an entrepreneurial venture. So having a look at that. So when you understand the world in which you operate, Now you understand what risks you're exposed to. You start to look at points of failure. In my Army career, there was a great phrase that we used all the time called a single point of failure. Is there any place in your business operations that if that ceased to operate, it would bring down your house of cards? Everything would grind to a halt. Everything would stop. And it's not easy replicable, right? So you use a payment. I use Stripe. A lot of people use different payment providers. If your payment provider goes down, I use Stripe for one of my websites. I use Shopify. See, I've got several payment providers out there. Anyhow, it's not well coordinated. Welcome to entrepreneurship. It's real. When one of them goes down, do you know how to put another one in? So you map out your processes, you map out your points of failure, and then you look at them. And remembering, you always have to remember risk analysis from the frame that you cannot eliminate risk. You cannot. No one in the world can eliminate risk. Even not doing something is accepting a different type of risk. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to embrace risk. You're going to enjoy risk if you want to be successful. It's not about avoiding it. It's about understanding it. Where is the risk? How much of a risk it is? And what am I accepting? And then you get to a level of comfort. And when we talk about financial resiliency, we're talking about if your main subscription requires, you have 100 people giving you $50 a month. You got $5,000 a month coming in on a subscription basis through this one program. If that piece of software goes down, all of a sudden that turns off. Well, if you make $100,000 a month in your business, then the $5,000 is not a big issue. But if what you make is $5,000 a month in your business and it's all through this one piece of software, how does that software get replicated? What is that company's program or process for users to get back up online? So, for example, I've run some courses on a Canadian program called Thinkific. If I was running everything on Thinkific, I would need to know think of it always as when Thinkific goes down and I stop getting enrollees and my students stop getting access to courses, what do I need to do to get back up and running? What are Thinkific's policies to be up and running? What are the company's policies to be up and running? It goes back to what we talk about in responsibility. You are responsible for your outcomes, and you alone are responsible for the success of your entrepreneurial venture, right? Nobody else is responsible. If you fail, it's your fault. If you succeed, it's your fault. Everything rests on your shoulder. And that, if you want to be an entrepreneur, that's exactly the way you want it. So it's your responsibility to know how to get that system up and running. It's your responsibility to know what your primary payment provider's intent is when there's a cyber breach. To understand your cyber exposure, to understand your operational risk exposure, to understand your strategic risk exposure, to understand your reputational risk exposure. All of these are your responsibility if you want to be an entrepreneur. Heck, if you want to be a human being in this great digital world and you and your family are online as well, then the same set of responsibilities exist, right? What does your bank intend to do when the banking system is hacked? Do you have insurance that covers that? Do you have cyber insurance? Do you have different types of insurance? All of these are questions that you have to ask, but you can't ask them until you understand your end-to-end business, until you can map out your business, until you can say to yourself, okay, I'm a Canadian provider. Let's use a perfect example here. I'm a Canadian provider that ships 80% of my goods cross-border to American customers. That would be noted as a single point of failure in your analysis. You would have looked at that and said, okay, if something interjects and that border gets closed for whatever reason, it could be a postal strike, it could be a tariff intervention by either government. The cause doesn't matter. The point is you've identified a single point of failure in your business. The fact that 80% of your Canadian goods go across to American customers, and ahead of time, in times of peace and calm, you've sat back and said, okay, what is my strategy when that border closes? Do I wait it out? Which is always a possibility, but you and I can't foresee the future. We have no idea how long that'll be closed or how long a tariff war would go on. So what is your strategy as a Canadian provider who sends 80% of their goods to the U.S.? What is your strategy when that border closes? Now, you can partner with a U.S. company to do manufacturing and distributing inside their country to remove the border. You can pre-position stock in the U.S. There's a whole bunch of things you could do, but that strategy needs to be determined before the event occurs. In FEMA and in disaster management, they call it blue sky planning versus dark sky planning. Blue sky planning is when we're sitting around right now in rose-colored country and everything's wonderful in the world, and we're thinking about our business, our financial resiliency, and we're thinking about what system or what part of my system, if it failed, would cause a significant impact in my ability to earn money. And then what is my strategy to mitigate that? This is an exercise not in money. It's not about making it rain with dollars. It's about simply saying, I've identified this. What are my available strategies? And walking through it. So when that event happens, when that border gets closed, and again, we don't care why, just this time it happens to be a tariff. A couple of years ago, it was a pandemic. The same lessons haven't been learned from the pandemic to the tariff fight, is that somebody else can shut down your border access and you can whine and like a petulant toddler. I mean, get upset. I get upset too. But still, in the end, you're whining and complaining and your mad tweets on X about the big bad people who are doing this to you go nowhere and generate no income and get you no further ahead. But guess what? There are businesses who are excelling right now, and who are using this disruption, using the lack of confidence, using this uncertainty, leveraging the embracing of risk, and they're jumping into this chaotic pool with 2 feet because they understand the principle of risk and they understand financial resiliency. They've built it into their model and they're all in. They're throwing massive amounts of capital at building cross-border operations between Canada and the U.S. right now, and they're killing it. They're killing it because they're willing to jump in, take risk, embrace it, where other people are standing back going, you know what? I'm going to slow down operations. I'm going to pause for now. We're going to see where this goes. A very cautious approach. That is not necessarily the worst choice. But if that choice leads to less revenue and less success, then that's your fault. And if that was your intent, then congratulations, you've met it. If your intent was to grow, you're now looking at, hey, the border closes. I had this pivot strategy that I figured out beforehand. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call the contacts. I'm going to execute the plan. And off you go while other people are running around having conversations, trying to figure out what color the sky is, what's going on, and who's doing what to whom. You, through your pivot plan and your strategy, are launching, and you are using uncertainty. You're exploiting uncertainty, and you're gaining market share. Because remember, market share is not owned. It's simply occupied. So if you have a 20% market share in an industry, you don't own that. You're just occupying that space, which means you can get booted out in a very short period of time by an exogenous shock. Remember the definition of resiliency: absorb energy and return to stasis. How fast can you put the operation back into running so you're still distributing your goods and services at a similar level, and even exploiting opportunities that pop up to occupy more of the market share in your industry? Financial resiliency is not that challenging. It is not that difficult. And if we look back to our roadmap to resilience that we have up on our website on preparednesslabs.ca, it's on the main page, but if you also go up to catalog, you will see our 4-step to family and individual preparedness is there free of charge. All our previous issues of the Journal of Preparedness in Canada are there free of charge. And further down the main page, you'll see a roadmap to resilience. It has a link to this YouTube channel, to this podcast, and to my Substack feed, where we've broken it down into 5 steps there to demonstrate to you what you can do as a family or as a community organization or as an individual to build your own financial resilience, to build the necessary emergency funds, to do pivot plan. And why are we different from everybody else? Well, because we use evidence, right? Because we've looked at people who were successful in other calamity events and how they resurrected, and the people who did well in the pandemic. And I've spent a reasonable amount of time examining people who were successful and financially successful in the pandemic. And I don't just mean the people who made homemade face masks with cool designs on it and made a killing in a short period, though they're a great example. I mean people whose industry stopped dead because of the lockdowns or because of the nature of what they did. Maybe they were in airlines. Maybe they were in, supporting an airlines. They weren't an airline themselves, but they were a company that supported airlines. The airlines shut down. Bam, what do? Do you sit on your butt and complain and wait for the magical government to put magic government money into your bank accounts? Or do you turn around and say, hey, I've got a pivot plan. When my regular income fails, I'm going to swing, as we used to say in the Army, swing fire over here, and I'm going to do this now. Like, I've already got that figured out. And that's part of your trifecta of preparedness plans as an individual and as a business owner, is to have an income cessation plan. Now, for an individual, it's called when you're fired, because everybody will get fired at one time. You'll die, you'll retire, you'll get fired, or you will quit. Everybody is going to leave the current job they're in at one time or another. What's your plan when that income ceases at a time not of your choosing? We all hope that the current job that we're in ends when we want it to end. But what if it ends tomorrow morning? You go into work tomorrow morning and you're met by HR and security. All of your stuff is a banker box. None of your emails work, and you're shown your severance package, and then you're shown the door. Thank you very much for your service. Now, we're all going to have our 24-hour pity party, right? We're all going to have our cry fest. I'll jump into a cigar and get some whiskey out. But the next morning I get up and I say, okay, I've got this strategy, this pivot plan. I know what I'm going to do next. I know how I'm, to the best of my ability, going to replicate the lost income. And off I go. And if I know that that is 3 months to get up and running, I've just determined what my emergency fund has to look like. If you just take an arbitrary number out of the sky and say, I need 3, 6, 9, 12 months emergency fund, let's throw some dartboards, right? You might as well just roll a D20 for D&D and come up with a number. This is just as accurate. But if you base the necessary emergency funds on your actual plan you have to replicate your current lost income, then you will know, hey, I've got a plan. I keep it up to date. I keep the skills as best as I can. And I know it's going to take 3 months. Then you know you need a minimum of 3 months income, right? It's the old adage of you'll never need, as long as you spend less than you earn, you'll never need savings, right? It's that basic thing. If you make $1,000 a month, then you spend $800. That's it. You save the other $200. Life's great. You'll never need those savings. Those savings are for your retirement because you'll never spend more than $800. Add a couple zeros to that. It doesn't matter. It's the same principle. So financial resiliency, whether you're looking at yourself, your community organization, or your small and medium business, is all about understanding the environment in which you operate, because you chose to be here, right? You chose to set up this business or community organization that provides this good and service to this avatar for this price with all of these overhead costs. You built it. Great. Awesome. Love it. I'm an entrepreneur myself. But you've chosen to live in this space. You need to understand the risks that you're exposed to based upon that. And then you need to look at options that are available. So the question is how do you do this on your own? Now, I'm a huge fan of AI. I use Grok, ChatGPT, whatever you want to use. But what AI does for you, and we've got a great episode coming up in a couple of weeks on the value of AI for small and medium businesses and how you can leverage it, is that AI provides you data. Think of it as an ability to do what humans do at an exponential level, right? So, Internet 1.0 was you could go to a website if you knew it, or you could email somebody. Internet 2.0 was simply you could go to this thing called Google search and you could ask it to find everything related to this term and it would rank the responses and people could buy those responses positioning in it. Internet 3.0 and the advent of AI simply says, so what? You're asking a computer to do something with information it has access to. If AI doesn't have access to data, it can't do anything for you. An AI model, the large language model, is all about predicting what the next likely answer is going to be. So, for example, if I asked AI to write me an article, go out and read everything on grain farming in Western Canada that's been published in the last 6 months in reputable news sources, and then write me a summary, it can do that. Internet 2.0 would have just given me a list of all the things that were written. I would have had to do that summary. What AI does is that summary. So it's doing something that I could do, but at an exponentially faster rate, like fractions of a second compare. It has the article written for me in 2, 3, maybe 7 seconds. And for me, it would have taken a month to read all that data, synthesize, make out the article. You can get all the information you want on risk, resilience, and preparedness from AI. It's going to look out as to what's on the internet. It doesn't know if what's on the internet is true or not, but it will take the most likely and most reputable sources, put it together, and give you an answer or a summation or a summary or what it recommends you do based upon what information on the internet says. The value difference that you need to find, and if you want to leverage AI and be a differentiator, is ask the question, so what? What do I do with that AI information? And the key to that is building your social capital. The key is to building your connectivity, is to getting together with a number of other small business owners, and other community members, other family members, whatever your situation may be, and getting together and talking about a set of common risks that you're exposed to, the data of which you can gather at lightning speed with AI. But what AI can't do for you is actually make the decision on what you do next. As a species, humanity are tribal group decision makers. Yes, we have the ability to do it on our own, but our most successful, again, this is evidence, our most successful times in history is when we get together and we think our way through problems together. That is something AI doesn't do yet. General intelligence maybe later, but as for now, AI provides us the data at lightning speed and it presents it in any way we want it. The differentiator that you add is, what do we do next? What is the most likely? What is the best course of action? What do you feel comfortable with? Maybe different from what I feel comfortable with, and what these group of people might be giving advice based upon their experience in similar situations. So building your social capital, building a community of people around you that are like-minded, facing similar issues, is exactly what your differentiator is going to be to get you through this current chaotic time in the next couple of years. Stay tuned here at Preparedness Labs Incorporated. We are launching a program in the next 2 weeks to do just that, to bring together all of you small and medium business owners to get together under one space where we can all sit down and figure out these problem sets that we're commonly associated or commonly affected by, where we can get together and talk about probable and potential solutions, give each other advice in a friendly, cooperative environment at a price point that is a fraction of what you would hire a risk consultant for or have a business continuity plan put together. For the vast majority of us are out there, we don't have $7,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 sitting in the bank to hand over to a consultant to do a risk management profile, a risk assessment, or give us a risk register. So how do we be successful? We do it together in a community. Stay tuned. We got that coming for you soon. Thanks again for joining us this week at Inside My Canoe Head. Please follow us, like, subscribe on YouTube. We're across all the social medias. We put out something like a couple of hundred pieces of individual content a week. Again, free of charge. We are here to provide you non-apocalyptic, evidence-based risk, resilience, and preparedness education as a community service so that we can all better navigate this chaotic time and deal with the political, economic, and natural disasters. Thank you very much. Take care. Stay safe.